Most people think the gap between broke and wealthy is complicated. It's not. There's one number that shows up at every critical financial turning point in your life: $8,000. Miss it and you stay stuck. Understand it and everything changes. Here are the 5 rules built around it. Rule 1 is the cash floor. Every financial advisor tells you to save 3 to 6 months of expenses. That advice is mathematically correct and psychologically useless. When someone hears 3 to 6 months, their brain calculates a number so large they quit before they start, so they save nothing. Here's the reframe. Forget the formula. Just get to $8,000 in liquid cash, not invested, not in your 401k, cash, sitting in a high-yield savings account doing nothing exciting. Here's why this specific number matters. Below $8,000 in liquid cash, you are paying a penalty for being broke that you cannot see on any statement. Your car makes a noise and you ignore it because you can't afford the $300 repair. 6 months later, it's a $2,000 transmission. Your tooth hurts, but the copay feels like a lot, so you skip the dentist. A year later, you're in the emergency room with a $4,000 bill. You buy the cheap tires twice instead of the good ones once, and end up spending more over a decade. Add those invisible costs across 3 years, and the price of not having $8,000 in cash is somewhere between $4,000 and $7,000. You are literally paying thousands of dollars for the privilege of being broke. The $8,000 buffer doesn't earn you anything, it stops you from losing everything. Think of it as the foundation of a house. You don't start building with the roof, you pour the foundation first. $8,000 is the foundation. Everything else is the house. Rule 2 is the car ceiling. Do not spend more than $8,000 on a car until your invested assets, not your income, your actual invested assets exceed $100,000. Most people have this completely backwards. The average American finances a $30,000 car with $11,000 saved in total investments. That's a car worth almost 3 times their entire financial future. Here's the math that changes how you see this. The difference between an $8,000 car and a $30,000 car is $22,000. Take that $22,000 and put it into a broad market index fund at 10% average annual returns. In 20 years, that single decision is worth $148,000. Not $22,000, $148,000, because the money you didn't spend on the car compounds for 2 decades. The car, whether you paid $8,000 or $30,000 for it, ends up worth the same thing in 20 years. Zero. The only thing that changes is what happened to the gap between those two prices. A 5 to 8-year-old Honda, Toyota, or Mazda with under 100,000 miles is statistically more reliable than most brand new cars from American or European manufacturers. When you buy an $8,000 car that originally sold for $30,000, you're buying a machine that has already done most of its depreciating. The financial risk is negligible. The financial difference between financing $30,000 and paying cash for $8,000 is the difference between building wealth and treading water for 5 years. Rule 3 is the investment floor. Invest a minimum of $8,000 per year. That's $667 a month. $8,000 a year invested consistently for 25 years at 10% historical average returns becomes $588,000. You put in $200,000 of your own money, the market adds $388,000 on top. But here's why this specific threshold matters. Below $8,000 a year, the retirement math breaks. At $5,000 a year, you end up with $367,000, which generates about $14,000 annually under the 4% withdrawal rule. That's below the poverty line for a single person. At $8,000 a year, you clear that line. The gap between $5,000 and $8,000 per year, just $250 a month difference, is the gap between a retirement that works and one that doesn't. The average American car payment in 2025 is $734 a month. The average American spends over $300 monthly on subscriptions they forget they have. The $8,000 annual investment floor isn't about earning more, it's about redirecting what you already earn. The money exists, it's currently building someone else's wealth. Rule 4 is the spending ceiling. This is the rule that scares high earners, and it should. If your monthly spending exceeds $8,000, you need $2.4 million before you can stop working. Read that again. $8,000 a month in spending means $96,000 a year. Multiply by 25 using the 4% rule, $2.4 million. Every $1,000 per month in spending requires an additional $300,000 in retirement savings. That's not a rounding error. That's a $300,000 decision hiding inside a slightly nicer apartment or a car upgrade. Take someone like Marcus. He makes $170,000 a year, top 5% of household income. His monthly spending sits around $9,000. Nice house, 2 newer cars, 2 vacations per year. Nothing flashy, just the natural accumulation of a good income. But at $9,000 a month, he needs $2.7 million to retire. At 42 years old with $310,000 in his 401k, he'd need to invest $34,000 a year for 23 years to hit that number. That's nearly $3,000 a month on top of his $9,000 in spending. The math doesn't work. His lifestyle quietly priced him out of retirement, and he never ran the numbers to see it. Compare that to someone who keeps spending at $5,000 a month. They need $1.5 million. The gap between a $5,000 monthly lifestyle and an $8,000 monthly lifestyle isn't $3,000 a month. It's $3.9 million in required retirement savings. The truly dangerous part is that nobody crosses the $8,000 spending line in one decision. It happens in increments so small you don't notice. A slightly better apartment adds $300. A newer car adds $250 in payments. The meal kit subscription, because you're busy, adds $160. The kids start activities. You add the premium streaming bundle, the better gym, the nicer phone plan. Each one in isolation is completely reasonable. Combined, they've pushed you across a threshold that now requires millions to sustain, and you crossed it without ever making a conscious choice. Rule 5 is the stress test. Before any lifestyle upgrade, anything that permanently increases your monthly spending, save $8,000 at the new spending level first. The logic is precise. Say you're thinking about moving to an apartment that costs $500 more per month. Before you sign the lease, keep living where you are and transfer that extra $500 every month into a separate account. If you can do it for 16 months without cutting into your investment contributions, you've proven 2 things. First, you can actually afford the upgrade without sacrificing your savings rate. Second, you've built a buffer specifically for the new expense level. If you can't save that $500 separately for 16 months while still hitting your investment floor, the lifestyle upgrade will break your financial system. You just got the answer before it cost you anything. This rule alone has a way of killing decisions that feel affordable in the moment, but aren't actually smart. Affordable means you can make the payment. Smart means you can make the payment and still build wealth at the same pace. Those are different things, and most people never test that distinction until they're 45, income is solid, and retirement savings look nothing like they should. Here's how all 5 rules connect. The $8,000 cash buffer breaks the poverty penalty and stops you making desperate decisions. The $8,000 car ceiling protects your compounding years during the decade where your investments need the most fuel. The $8,000 annual investment floor is the minimum threshold for a retirement that actually functions. The $8,000 monthly spending ceiling is the line where retirement math turns from difficult to mathematically impossible for most incomes. And the $8,000 stress test is the filter that separates a smart lifestyle upgrade from a financial trap you don't discover until it's too late. The wealthy don't have a complicated system. They have a simple system they never violate. Most people think building wealth requires sophisticated knowledge, the right connections, perfect timing. It doesn't. It requires understanding a small number of thresholds and defending them consistently while everyone around you drifts past them without noticing. $8,000 is not a magic number. It's a forcing function. It shows you at every decision point whether you're building wealth or quietly dismantling it. The people who get this right don't look like they're doing anything special. They drive the used car, they live in the reasonable apartment, and one day they stop working because their math worked out. The people who don't get this right keep waiting for the raise that fixes everything. It never does.